All right. So, hello, everyone. My name is Danica Favorite. I'm the community manager at PublishDrive. And today we have a special webinar with our guest, Evan Gow, who is the developer of StoryOrigin. And I'm really excited to have Evan here with me today. I've known Evan in the indie space here off and on for a little bit. We see each other at conferences and wave and chat with each other. And so I'm really excited that we get to have him in for a chat because a lot of our authors, a lot of the people who are using PublishDrive often are asking, how can we better market our books? How can we get more marketing done and have more people buying our books? I think that is the pain point of every author is, how do I sell more books? How do I get them in the hands of readers? And obviously, we're doing everything we can at PublishDrive to get your books out there to the widest audience possible, but there's still some legwork that needs to be done. And a lot of that isn't something PublishDrive can necessarily do for you. But the great news is I know really great people like Evan who can help you market your book and get your book, now that it's out wide, to an even wider audience. So Evan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm Evan. I am the indie developer of StoryOrigin, which is a platform for authors that can help you build your mailing list, find reviewers, increase sales, arrange cross promotions with other authors, build your author website, track your daily word count, distribute audiobook promo codes to reviewers. It does a whole bunch of stuff. So StoryOrigin is sort of a one-stop shop. So if you're currently, you have 8 different services and 5 different spreadsheets and you're trying to track all of this stuff and you're doing a bunch of context switching between all of these different logins and everything, StoryOrigin can help you simplify a lot of that so that you've just got one place to manage it all.
I love that. I love that. See, we're kind of in the same business. We do different things, but
Yeah.
Our goal is to give authors as few places as possible to have to go for their stuff. So I love that. I love that you're doing that. And tell me a little bit about your origin story. I love how you like to play on that story origin word. Where did story origin come from? What made you decide to build it?
Yeah, so I used to write short stories back in high school, and then in college got interested in tech and entrepreneurship, worked for a few years, wanted to get back into writing and then build tools for authors at the same time. So I went and I talked to a bunch of authors to get their advice, and they're like, sign up for this one service to build your mailing list, sign up for this other service to find reviewers, sign up for this other service to create universal book links, and then go here to do this, to arrange newsletter swaps or join group promos, and then go to this other site or do this combo of like email and Word docs and all this stuff for like beta readers. And I was like, okay, so you have like a million different things going on. I see the problem here. And so I wanted to build one thing that just would do it all for you. And that quickly took over 100% of my time. So I spend, most of my time programming. I never really got back into writing the way that I was planning to. But it's great because I actually really enjoy writing software. So
So
I'm
it's a
very
kind of
happy.
writing.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
kind of writing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. And I love that idea of finding all of the places and just putting them in one spot, because I know for me, wearing my author hat when I'm doing the author stuff, it really is hard to figure out, okay, wait, what do I use for this? What do I use for that? Et cetera, et cetera. And there are so many tools. And so I think it's so great that you have everything in one spot so that people can take advantage and use it. So obviously, I know marketing is hard for authors. You know marketing is hard. Although I don't know, maybe you think it's super easy and we're just missing the boat on that. But I would love to hear your thoughts on what the current marketing landscape for authors looks like and where you're seeing marketing right now.
Yeah. So if you look at the marketing landscape, there's a few different ways and sort of headwinds that authors face. So if you look at just social media. A lot of that stuff has become pay to play, where if you post stuff to social media, the probability that the audience that follows you to ostensibly get your content probably won't see it, because the algorithms only bubble that up in people's feeds maybe 1% of the time or something like that. And so it's really hard to build an audience on across social media. And then the other thing is that those platforms are not things that you own. So whenever, if you somehow trigger one of the bots or whatever that flags some post or something, it's possible your account gets shut down, and then whatever audience you've built up there over the years can just disappear overnight. And then another thing is that those platforms and in other places like Amazon and retailers where you can advertise as well, a lot of times what you're doing is you're bidding for impressions. And so the key part there is that you're bidding. And so as more authors enter the market and saturate those platforms with their own advertisements for their own books, those bids increase over time because there are just more dollars chasing the same number of eyeballs. And so it just becomes more expensive to advertise on those platforms over time. Now, that's not to say don't do it, because the ROI can certainly be there, but you also have to think about your position as an author. If you only have a single book out and you're selling it for $1.99 or $2.99 or something along those lines, and your return on those ads is probably going to be negative, because you can't depend on read through to book 2, book 3, book 4, etc. When you compare it against a lot of authors that might have a backlist of 10, 20, 30 books, they can spend a lot more on ads because they can depend on that reader that reads book 1 buying book 2, book 3, book 4, etc. And so it's really difficult to get started when you're an author and you're just starting out. It's really difficult to make those ads profitable. And then the other thing is, when you're getting started and you don't have a big fan base, is really difficult to get people to leave reviews on things, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so just building up those reviews takes a lot of time. But there's one thing that sort of solves all of these problems, which is like the most archaic piece of technology that all of us interact with on a daily basis, which is email, right? Email, there's no single platform that controls email that has some algorithm where it decides what gets sent to people. And so it's this decentralized thing where you send an email, people are going to be able to see, open, and read that email, and a lot more likely to actually see it than they would if you just posted something on social media. And the other thing is that, generally speaking, the cost of sending emails has been declining over time, because there are new entrants to the market where there's just new services that are much more affordable than the services that started 10 or 15 years ago, etc. And so it's becoming generally cheaper to send out newsletters and things along those lines.
Really? Okay, I have
Yeah.
to stop you there
Yeah,
because
sure.
I'm rethinking my newsletter process,
Okay.
because the newsletter provider that I was using, they actually they sent me a bill that they were like tripling the cost of my service. And I'm like, dude, for what? So I
Yeah.
think that's interesting. Where are you seeing these cheaper newsletter providers?
I mean, there are a lot of interesting newer alternatives. Email Octopus is great. I love them. Then you've got other services like SendFox or Author Email. Flowdesk is one that a lot of authors have started picking up. And then even things like Substack, where it's not technically really an email service provider, but you can manage a mailing list through Substack and you can send those emails completely for free. Now
That's awesome.
they don't have stuff like automations that you can, have a 20 email welcome sequence and stuff like that. Substack is limited in certain ways where it's not a perfect email service provider, but it can and does stand in as a replacement for a lot of authors that are looking for a cheaper alternative.
Yeah,
Um,
that's great. Thank you.
so
I
yeah,
was just sitting there going, wait, you're saying cheaper, and I'm dealing with the opposite. But yeah, I'm actually moving to Substack for that reason. So very interesting. I appreciate you sharing that. So
yeah,
other marketing channels that you think are great. I
yeah.
know I
Well,
interrupted you there, so I want to make sure if there's something that you
yeah. The last point I would say is just that, like the other part that's really difficult in terms of marketing and building an audience is that getting reviews part. And when you have an email list, you have a real connection to your readers
Mhm.
where you can build real relationships with people via email, which you can't really do when you're just running advertisements or you are, even social media. It's really hard to build like meaningful connections because it's sort of a public space versus email is like a private one-to-one kind of a thing. So people are just generally much more willing to respond and have a conversation with you. And so you can use those connections that you build to build a review team and say like, hey, I've got a new book that's coming out in 6 weeks or 8 weeks or something like that. I'm looking for people that might want to get an early copy, leave a review. Your people that are on your mailing list are a lot more likely to say yes to that than just if they bought a book, leave a review on it from an author that they don't have that sort of personal connection with.
I think that's a really good point, is that personal connection. And if it's somebody that you like and somebody that you know, you're more likely to leave a review as opposed to just some random book. So that's really a really great point. So how would you suggest, I know we talked a little bit about the newsletter platforms a bit, so I kind of jumped the gun there, but how do authors set up that newsletter platform? How would you go about setting up a newsletter, and what is your advice there?
Yeah, so I would recommend signing up to one of those email service providers like MailerLite or Mailchimp or Email Octopus or SendFox or Convert. There's a ton of them.
Ooh,
So it's
yeah.
really just a matter of checking them all out, seeing which ones you like. A lot of authors get started with MailerLite because they have a pretty generous free tier and the user interface is fairly intuitive. So you would just create an account there, and that is where you would actually design and send your newsletters. And so when people get onto your mailing list, that they would be added to your mailing list on MailerLite, and then that when you design and send a newsletter out, you would say, "Hey, I want to send it to this group of people."
Yeah, that's great. I love that. And what other things should they put in place to build their author platform?
Another great thing to have as an author would be having a website, something that you own. Again, going back to the point where, social media platforms or Amazon or other things, those platforms, they can just delete your account and then you are cut off. So I always encourage authors, email lists and websites. Those are the things that you can own. Even if let's say you're using a particular email service provider and they go out of business or something along those lines, you can always download that list of email addresses that you have saved in your email service provider and just take that CSV file and upload it to a different email service provider and start sending your newsletters through another service, right? Because at the end of the day, it's email. It's and that list is something that you own. And your website, same goes for that. If you build an author website on evangow.com or something along those lines, you can always, even if you're using one particular website host, if they go out of business or something along those lines, again, you own that domain, and so you can
Mhm.
rebuild the website using a different service. So these are things that you own: your domain name and your email list, all that stuff. And so building an author website can be an incredibly valuable thing to have should anything ever happen to your profiles on, Amazon or wherever else, whatever other retailers you have. And that way you can drive traffic somewhere to somewhere you own.
Yeah. So I have a question here, and I don't fully know what they mean by this, but hopefully we can shed some light
We'll
onto it.
parse
Is
it.
how do you protect the material on the website?
If you're looking at trying to protect like your file downloads and stuff like that, things like StoryOrigin where a reader can come and request that file from you and sign up to your mailing list. So these are called reader magnets, and maybe we'll get a little bit more into this later in the conversation as well. But one great way to build your email list is to give readers what they want, which is a story. And so you give that for free to them when they sign up to your mailing list. So StoryOrigin has a way of creating what are called reader magnet landing pages. Some people call reader magnets, might call them cookies or freebies or something along those lines. But that is that free book or story or download that you're giving to that person when they sign up to your mailing list. And so when someone comes to that landing page, they would request they put their name and email address into that request form, and then StoryOrigin would send them the link to that download. Once a reader has your book files, there's not much else that can be done. Even when you're selling books on Amazon or wherever else, once readers can get those files onto their devices, they can always do things to strip out like DRM and stuff like that and upload those to pirate sites and things like that. For the most part, I encourage authors to just ignore pirates, because those are not your primary target audience, right? Like a person who goes and pirates a bunch of books, they're not going to be someone that you would have ever sold a book to, because that is not who that kind of person is.
Right.
And
I'm glad you said that, because
yeah,
I think that people do get worried about stealing content and pirating and things like that. But I think that you hit the nail on the head with the idea that they're not your target audience. They wouldn't have bought from you anyway. And the people who would be buying for you aren't going to be going to those sites.
exactly. And you could spend like hours every week trying to chase these things down and like sending emails and investigating stuff. And like, for the most part, it is like trying to play whack-a-mole, right? Where you're going to have a very hard time ever actually solving the problem, because another one will pop up. And so for the most part, it's best to just spend that time that you would otherwise devote to trying to stamp out all of these things popping up. It's best to spend that time simply focusing on marketing to buyers, to
Right.
people who are actually
Right.
buying your books. And so yeah, so I generally would say, in terms of how much time you need to worry and spend on thinking about protecting stuff on your website, I would not spend a ton of time on it. It's good to have some general safeguards, but for the most part, and it's like that stuff just comes by default when you're using StoryOrigin.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
But
that's why
for the
it's
most
really
part, don't
good
worry
to
about it.
use a service like StoryOrigin, because I think you guys, again, you guys are a reputable service and you're going to be able to help with all of those needs. So let's go back to where you touched on. And I think this is really some good, juicy stuff that our viewers are really going to enjoy is how do you get readers to sign up for your mailing list? What is that enticement to get people to sign up and develop that one-on-one relationship?
Yeah. So I recommend that free, book or story or download as an enticement for them to get signed up to your mailing list. And so what that actually looks like for fiction authors, I generally recommend using a prequel short story to your book or your series for a couple of reasons. A prequel is really good at leading them into book one. And so just has that hook, that natural hook of, hey, I want to read more about these characters. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to buy book one so I can continue following this story, right? That doesn't work quite as well if you're talking about something like a side story about some of the non-main characters that happens just like at the same time or something along those lines. It doesn't have quite as good of a hook into starting reading book one. And in terms of time, if you write a short story, like let's say 10 to 20,000 words, it's relatively fast to write and cheap to edit. And so even though one thing that I want to mention there is like, even though you're giving this thing away for free, it's still very important that it is polished, because this is like giving out free samples, right? If if you're down at the mall, which I don't know when the last time everyone went to a mall was, uh, but when you went to the mall, you would go to the food court and they'd have like the free samples. Now, if you got a free sample and you're like, oh, this tastes disgusting, I'm not going to go and then buy something else from that restaurant, right? And so you as an author, if there's a bunch of, or your reader magnet, if there's a bunch of typos, if it's like there's a bunch of plot holes or it's kind of confusingly written, like you should not expect that reader is then going to want to go and buy your first book. And so getting it edited, even though you're giving it away for free, and making sure that's really polished is still quite important. In fact, it might be more important than anything else that you're doing. And so, yeah, so for a nonfiction author, that you might give away something like like worksheets or some sort of companion guide to your book that helps them implement things that you're talking about in your book and making that advice actionable, stuff like that. You can come up with all sorts of ideas. I would just say, no matter what you are doing, don't let any of these recommendations, we're here talking about lots of advice, and we're going to be talking about lots of things that we recommend that you do, but don't let any of these recommendations be roadblocks, right? So if today it would take you, let's say, 3 to 6 months to write a short story prequel and get it edited and get a book cover and do all that stuff. And so you're not going to start building your mailing list for 3 to 6 months until you have that reader magnet ready. Like, find something else that you can get started with today. Even if that's, let's say you have book 1 written and published, take out the first 3-4 chapters out of that book. Just use that sample as your reader magnet that people can come and get from you and get started. And then they can join your mailing list to get that first sample version. Now, the efficacy of a sample is generally lower than a full story, but there are lots of authors who have gotten started with building their mailing list just using a sample of their first book. And that'll get them their first few hundred subscribers on the mailing list. And then you can have as many reader magnets as you want. You don't have to just use a sample or just use a prequel. You can have multiple prequels, side stories, extended epilogues, all sorts of things that entice readers to join your mailing list.
I think that's a great idea. And I love that idea of doing the sample, because I know there are a lot of beginner authors who are like, oh my goodness, writing the book was hard enough. Now you've got to write this prequel. So
Absolutely.
I love that idea. I think that's a really great idea. So I'm glad you shared that. So how do authors get word out about the reader magnet? They've got the reader magnet, they've decided on it, they've put it together. How do they get word out?
You create a landing page for that reader magnet. You can do it on StoryOrigin or your own website or however you want to do it. Have a landing page for that reader magnet that you can send someone the link to it, and they can request that download, and that would have them join your mailing list. Now, where are you going to put that link? So I would recommend putting that link in the back of your book. So this is one of the reasons I recommend a prequel as a good reader magnet, is it can act as a reader magnet to both readers who have and have not read the follow-up book, right? So if a reader reads book 1 and they really love the characters and they want to explore those characters in more depth, a reader prequel short story to that book would be probably very enticing to them. And so put that link at the end of your book 1. Put it in the front matter as well is another good place to put it. Post it on your social media. Post it again. And like, this is one of those things where if you are building a social media audience, if you can turn those Facebook followers or wherever you're building your social media, turn those into newsletter subscribers. That way you have a connection with them that you can own. That is much more valuable. And so post it across your social media, back your book, on your website, or if you do blog posts on your blog. And then lastly is by doing cross promotions with other authors. So if you connect with another author, let's say you write romance or sci-fi or fantasy or thriller or mystery or anything along those lines, connect with other authors in your genre and arrange cross promotions with them. So there are 2 different types of cross promotions that can be a great way to get started getting the word out about your reader magnet and get people joining your mailing list. So one type of cross promotion is called a newsletter swap. And many people who are not familiar with that term think that it means like, oh, we're going to exchange like email addresses. I'll give you my subscriber list. You give me your subscriber list. No, don't do that. That is illegal. A newsletter swap is simply just agreeing with another author that you will mention their book in one of your upcoming newsletters. So when I design my newsletter on my email service provider, again, whatever I'm using, MailerLite or MailChimp or Email Octopus or whatever, when I'm designing, I'm putting together my newsletter, I'll grab your book cover image, I'll put that into my newsletter, and I'll put a link to your book along with that book cover image into my newsletter. And so when I send that out to my mailing list, my readers can see, oh, here's other books that are in my genre that I might be interested in. So readers can click on it. And so you can arrange these cross promotions, these newsletter swaps with other authors where you're having them promote your reader magnet, your freebie that readers can get when they sign up to your mailing list. And StoryOrigin is one of those places that you can use to arrange newsletter swaps. Before StoryOrigin, most authors were arranging these newsletter swaps just via like Facebook groups and Google Forms. And it was sort of the wild, wild west where like you wouldn't really know when you're arranging a newsletter swap with another author, like how many are they going to actually like fulfill their end of the bargain, and like how many clicks are they sending to newsletter swaps, and what does their newsletter actually even look like when they put your book in it, and all that stuff. StoryOrigin brought a lot more transparency to newsletter swaps when I released that feature. And so you can go and you can see how many clicks are other authors sending to books that they've agreed to promote. What does their newsletter actually look like? So you can check out like the browser preview link for them. You can also just see like how big their mailing list is, what their open rate and click rate is. And so there's just a lot more transparency with arranging those newsletter swaps on StoryOrigin. And it's really easy to get started. You don't have to mess with using like Google Docs and like Bitly links and all of this other stuff that authors were doing before.
Yeah, well, I like too that like for StoryOrigin, you're not just shouting into the void of, hey, someone do a newsletter swap with me. You guys have a little bit of a matchmaking kind of thing. I call it matchmaking. You probably have a different term for that.
Yeah, I mean, I just say there's like the directory of upcoming swap opportunities. But yeah, you could call it matchmaking as well. You can browse the list of basically upcoming newsletters that authors are sending, see what send dates that they're sending their newsletters, and then you can just say, hey, they're looking to have XYZ book promoted, and you say, oh yeah, I'll promote that book of yours if you promote, this book of mine on this date. And yeah, it takes about 30 seconds to request a newsletter swap through StoryOrigin.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I think that's really just such an easy way to get those people active and being able to find someone, because I think that is the biggest challenge for a lot of authors is, well, okay, that's great. Where do I find this? And StoryOrigin makes that really easy for people. So I really appreciate that about what you guys do and what you have. So what would your tips be for someone perhaps who maybe they're just starting their newsletter from scratch?
Yeah. Yeah. So I would recommend go and request some of those newsletter swaps and join the other type of cross promotion we didn't talk about yet, but group promos are incredibly valuable as well. So group promo is not a one-to-one cross promotion. It is a group promotion. It's you, me, and let's say 20 other authors that all write romance, or we all write fantasy or something along those lines. We'll all list our books on a single landing page, and then we all drive our traffic to that landing page. And so when I promote that landing page in my newsletter, my readers can go and find 20 other books from other authors that are free that they can check out when they're, joining, and they can request those and join those authors' newsletters and all of that stuff as well. So group promos are another great way to get started with building your mailing list. And I think a lot of authors, their first question is like, hey, I have 0 subscribers. Like, how can I arrange or join cross promotions if I have 0 subscribers? I'll say that a lot of the StoryOrigin community, many authors on StoryOrigin had 0 subscribers when they were starting out, when they joined StoryOrigin. And there were other authors that were nice enough to let them into their own group promotions or to arrange newsletter swaps with them. And those authors now have hundreds or maybe thousands of subscribers on their mailing list, but they remember, because it probably wasn't that long ago that they had literally 0 people on their mailing list. So they remember exactly what it was like to be in your position. And so when you request a newsletter swap with them or join one of their group promos, they're usually happy to accept those cross promotion requests.
That's awesome. And so one of the questions is, how can a book be made available online for free? And I know StoryOrigin, you guys have your method of doing that when we're talking about a reader magnet that might not be for sale on retailers. And just from our perspective at PublishDrive, all you do is go into your PublishDrive dashboard and set your price to free. obviously you do that for a limited amount of time, but that is what those group promos are. It's just, and I can say that I've done a group promo with StoryOrigin before where, we just all agreed during these dates, our books are going to be free. So you go into your dashboard on PublishDrive or wherever, set that price to free for that period of time, and then it's free as part of that. But then I know, Evan, you've got ways in terms of what you do with StoryOrigin. You can set those prices if it's a book on StoryOrigin, so you can share about that.
Yeah, so StoryOrigin has a few different features. So if you are looking to build your mailing list and give a book away for free in exchange for someone signing up to your mailing list, then the feature you would want to use is the reader magnets feature. But if you have a book that is listed on retailers that you are setting for free for whatever reason, maybe you're trying to just get as many downloads as possible so that you can get that book into as many hands as possible to maybe get more reviews on it or something along those lines. Or maybe you're giving that download away for free so that you can try and top the charts for the free lists on Amazon or something along those lines, and have the algorithm, Amazon's algorithm sort of boost that to other people on Amazon that are shopping those free lists and things along that, and using that as a hook into getting started to read your series, all that stuff. So when you want to promote your book that is available on retailers, whether that's free or 99 cents or $2.99 or $5.99, whatever that is, that's totally fine. What you would do is you would create what is called a universal book link on StoryOrigin. And what makes universal book links very helpful is that, for example, Amazon has a ton of different storefronts. So there's not just Amazon.com, right? There's Amazon.com, Amazon.co.uk for the UK, Amazon.com.au for Australia, Amazon.ca for Canada, Amazon. I think last time I checked, there's like nearly 20 of them. And so when you send a reader in the UK an Amazon.com link, that is the incorrect link for that reader. And so that can frustrate potentially 10 to 15% of your audience, which is located usually outside of the US for many English speaking writers. And so you don't want to frustrate 10 to 15% of your potential reader base because your conversion rate on those when you send them an Amazon.com link will just really drag down your conversion rate on those sales. And so you can use a universal book link on StoryOrigin where it'll take them to a landing page that lists the retailers where you have it available for sale. And even if that's only Amazon, when they click on that Amazon button on StoryOrigin will redirect them to the appropriate Amazon storefront, again, like amazon.co.uk, for your book listing on amazon.co.uk for UK readers, right? Or amazon.com.au for readers in Australia, etc. So StoryOrigin localizes those Amazon links for your readers. And then also you can list the other retailers, or if you're wide, you can list the other retailers where you have that book available, and StoryOrigin does the same things for those links. So whether that's Kobo or Barnes & Noble or Google Play or Apple, etc. And so you can create those universal book links on StoryOrigin if your book is free, or again, like $5.99 or whatever the price is. And then you can arrange those cross promotions as well, those newsletter swaps and group promos to promote that universal book link. And so, Danica, like what you were saying, you joined a group promotion where all the authors agreed to set their books for free for a limited period of time. And we're all going to promote our books during that time period. That is a great way to like drive a ton of traffic to a book that you have listed for free on retailers at a specific time. And that can be a great way to get more reviews on a book that has maybe not gotten enough reviews on it or something of the sort. And then StoryOrigin has other features around like getting reviews with review copies and audiobook promo codes and stuff like that as well. But that's just another tactic that many authors find helpful.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of really great tactics, and I love how you're sharing so many of them. One of the things I was wondering is the website. We were talking about the website. You're talking about people owning that property. So what should people have on their website? What is important for, we've got the people, we're getting them, we're driving them to our newsletter. They're starting to sign up for our newsletter. What should be on our website?
Yeah, so I recommend basically very simple websites for authors, because I think a lot of times many authors might, and just like myself included, if you give me a sandbox, I'll touch all the knobs and I'll do things, and I'll make things way more complicated than they need to be. So I generally recommend to authors to try and keep your websites as simple as possible. What you would want to have on there is your reader magnets, those books that readers can get for free when they sign up to your mailing list, your universal book link. So when they click on one of your books on your author website, it'll take them to the correct retailer listing for that reader's country. You want to have just like your book cover images be clickable as well. A lot of times authors will have like a link to a button where the book is just like on Amazon or whatever. Make sure your images of that book are clickable as well. And then have a nice little author bio there, and potentially, other places that they might want to follow you. If you want to do direct sales, you can also put your books up you can do direct sale ebooks with StoryOrigin as well. So if you build your author website using StoryOrigin, you can do all this stuff that I'm talking about. You can sell your books direct through your website that you built with StoryOrigin. And that is, the payments are processed by Lemon Squeezy. That is the payment processor that StoryOrigin integrates with to handle that. StoryOrigin, I have plans to add more payment processors so that you can use others. But the thing that's great about Lemon Squeezy is they actually act as the merchant of record. So if you are an author and you sell a single book in Spain or Germany or anywhere in the European Union, or in the UK, those countries have what's called a $0 threshold for VAT taxes, and VAT is basically like a sales tax. And so if you want to sell your ebooks in those countries, you need to be applying, collecting, and remitting those sales taxes when you make those sales of your book. So when you use Lemon Squeezy, they act as the merchant of record, and they will actually automatically apply and collect and remit those sales tax on your behalf. If you're using another platform or payment processor like Shopify, you are liable for collecting and remitting those sales taxes. And it's a bit of a headache to like register for collecting taxes in all of these various countries, and then filing quarterly reports to remit them and doing all that stuff, and doing the calculations. It's all a huge headache. So Lemon Squeezy taking you this off your plate if you want to do direct sales is extremely valuable. And so you can build your author website with StoryOrigin, and StoryOrigin will create those landing pages for your books, and then basically a modal will pop up from Lemon Squeezy, which is where they would enter like their payment information, whether that's a card or PayPal or whatever the reader wants to use. And then StoryOrigin would redirect them to that file download after they've made that purchase, and handle the customer support for those readers as well. And that's another thing where if you're running your own Shopify store or whatever, and you're sending downloads to people, like making sure that you handle customer support for how they get that ebook onto whatever their preferred reading devices can be quite a pain as well. And so StoryOrigin will handle that bit for you too.
I think that's great. And it's important. I love that we're talking about direct sales, because I know that is the big topic in indie world. And I know a lot of authors ask PublishDrive all the time, hey, do you guys do direct sales? And right now we don't. And that's on the roadmap. Someday we'll get there, but we have a lot of other things we want to take care of first. And so when we're talking to someone like you, it's like, okay, we can send people to StoryOrigin for direct sales. So tell me a little bit more about your direct sales, how the direct sales work.
Yeah, so it's very similar. Like when you learn one StoryOrigin tool, like or page builder, you basically learn them all, right? So like a reader magnet, creating a reader magnet on StoryOrigin, it's very simple. You basically enter your title, your description, and upload your files, and then StoryOrigin will generate the page for you, the reader magnet landing page. When you want to put up a universal book link, you enter your title and then your retailer links, and StoryOrigin will create the page for you. Same goes for direct sales. It's like you enter the title, the description, you upload your files, and StoryOrigin will create the page for you. And you just tell it, which product on your Lemon Squeezy account for processing the payments that landing page is associated with, and then StoryOrigin sort of handles the details. And so there's not like a ton of knobs that you need to turn or anything like that. It's fairly straightforward. And if you ever run into trouble with doing any of these things, also, you can always reach out to me personally, even Evan at StoryOriginApp.com. Or if you go to StoryOriginApp.com, you can click the contact page. You'll see my face. You'll see my name. You'll see my email address. I'm always very transparent about things. So people are welcome to reach out anytime.
That's really great. So what if I had my own website? I didn't want to build a website with StoryOrigin. Could I still use StoryOrigin for direct sales?
You would not be using StoryOrigin. So you could use StoryOrigin for direct sales, but it wouldn't be hosted on your website. That, let's say you built a website with WordPress or something along those lines, and you have that WordPress website hosted on, let's say, www.evangow.com. You can create a subdomain on StoryOrigin on that same domain that you own. So instead of it being at www.evangow.com, it would be, you could have it be at books.evangow.com or, shop.evangow.com or something along those lines. So that you could basically build that direct sales part of your store via StoryOrigin. You can also just sell direct just on StoryOrigin's domain. So when you create that direct sale ebook page on StoryOrigin, you'll have it just automatically be available on StoryOriginApp.com, and you can send readers to that page as well. If you're not having it on your own website, you don't have to.
Okay, that sounds great. That sounds really great. Are there any geographical restrictions to being able to direct sales with StoryOrigin?
No. So the payment processor Lemon Squeezy, you can be located as a seller in pretty much any country, and you can sell to pretty much any country. There are a few restrictions, like, for example, you can't sell products in North Korea, for example. So they don't do business with North Korea. But like, other than like a very, very, very small handful of countries, yeah, it doesn't matter where you're located or where your readers are located. Lemon Squeezy will work for you and your readers.
That's awesome. That's so great. I know you've said if people need help, they can reach out to you. What kind of technical expertise do authors need if they want to use StoryOrigin?
None, really. I mean, the forms, again, going back to what I was saying earlier, are pretty simple. It's generally just like a matter of filling out a form with the title and your description and uploading your ebook. If you can publish a book through PublishDrive, right, where you are putting it up on a bunch of different retailers and making it available for sale there, you can do StoryOrigin for sure. It's usually just a matter of like a single page form that you fill out with the details. And that's everything you really need to create all the various assets that you would want to have on StoryOrigin.
That's really great. I think that's really important for authors, just to know that there's an easy way to do it, because certainly there are many other ways to accomplish all the things we've talked about today.
Yeah.
But like, it's a lot to manage. I think that goes back to that one place to just have everything, so that you're not trying to manage this piece here, this piece there, and learn all of the different tech. You're doing it all in one spot, which I think is really great. I think that makes StoryOrigin a really wonderful platform.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll mention there as well is there's also a tutorials tab on StoryOrigin. So when you go to StoryOriginApp.com, in the navigation bar, you'll see a tab called tutorials. You can just watch video tutorials on every individual feature there. You'll find also in-depth guides to like how to build a mailing list, or how to find and work with beta readers, because StoryOrigin also has features for distributing beta copies and collecting feedback and getting better feedback usually than you would if you just were like sending people a Google Doc link. And so, yeah, you'll find in-depth guides there, and you'll find case studies from other authors. And again, if those things are not working for you, you can always send me an email as well.
That's great. We talked about a lot of features that StoryOrigin has. Did we get them all? Or is there anything else that StoryOrigin does that I missed? Because every time I look at your website, I feel like you're doing something even better. So anything else about StoryOrigin?
I don't know that we could cover every feature in StoryOrigin in an hour, but I think, like goal trackers doing word count tracking, a lot of authors love that. They don't expect that something they would be able to do on StoryOrigin, but a lot of authors love that. Distributing your audiobook promo codes to reviewers on StoryOrigin is another thing you can do. If you are currently using other services like Linktree to just build a landing page that has like buttons to all of the other places where readers can follow you, you can do that with StoryOrigin. You can create those sort of Linktree style pages. They're called link collections on StoryOrigin. And so and then again, you can host those on your own domain. So it's something that you own, right? And you don't, this is all a part of the same plan on StoryOrigin. There's not 1 million different subscriptions on StoryOrigin. You're either on the free tier or you're on the paid tier. And StoryOrigin is $10 a month or $100 per year. And that gets you everything we've been talking about. So that's the reader magnets, the cross promotions, the review copies, the beta copies, all of that stuff. And the beta copies feature I briefly mentioned there is really cool. A lot of authors that have run beta copies other ways before really love StoryOrigin's beta copies feature, even though it doesn't get talked about that much. Like in Facebook groups and things like this, you'll always see authors talking about like, how do I get started building my mailing list? This is like the perennial question in author Facebook groups is like, how do I get started building my mailing list? And so a lot of times you'll see StoryOrigin pop up in there in Facebook groups for that reason. So that's what a lot of authors associate StoryOrigin with, is like building a mailing list. But other things that don't get talked about like very regularly in Facebook groups is like, how do I manage like beta readers and stuff like this? This is not talked about all that frequently. But so the authors that do use the StoryOrigin beta copies feature really love it. And one of the reasons is that when you give access to a beta reader, they have to leave feedback on each chapter to unlock the next chapter.
Oh,
Because
that's cool.
yeah, I've just heard from so many authors that are like, yeah, I gave my Word doc out to my readers and like they tell me it was great, I loved it, and you as the author are like, okay, I mean, I'm glad that you loved it, but that doesn't help me make the book better. And so when readers have to leave feedback on each chapter, you'll actually just get much more fine-grained feedback, and you can provide them with critique guidance like, hey, were there any scenes that were boring, or like, what do you think about the dynamic between these two characters, or like, is this believable, this what's happening in this chapter, things like that. And so you can provide critique guidance so that you'll just get much more substantial and feedback that you can use in your editing process to improve that book.
Yeah. So the question in here is, how do we get the reviews of the book? So I think that is really, it's just in the StoryOrigin app. Is that right?
Yeah, if you're trying to get more reviews on your book, you would use the review copies feature on StoryOrigin. And I'll go ahead. Can we do a screen share real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll just take people into my dashboard very quickly. So I'm here on storyoriginApp.com. If I go to my For Authors tab, that'll take me to my author dashboard. And so you can see here all of the things that we've been talking about. So those landing pages, like those reader magnets, universal book links, direct sale ebooks, review copies, beta copies, direct downloads, audiobook review codes, universal audio links, book collections, link collections, all that stuff is right there. And then if you want to arrange cross promotions, you can, create group promos or join group promos or arrange newsletter swaps. And then StoryOrigin comes with like a calendar and goal trackers. That's for like tracking your word count and stuff. So all of that's available right there on your dashboard. And if anyone's feeling like overwhelmed by like, there's so much here to do, like, what do I do? I would recommend starting with just on your homepage, you'll see these 3 text boxes: build mailing list, find reviewers, increase sales. So I generally recommend starting with building your mailing list first. And you'll just find a checklist of, okay, go here and create a reader magnet, go here, post a mailing list, post your upcoming newsletter dates, apply for giveaway group promos, or request newsletter swaps. And then you'll find additional recommendations there with some additional resources and stuff, and additional recommendations for how you can also like build your review team at the same time that you're building your mailing list. And then if you're trying to find reviewers, you can similarly get a checklist of items and just go through those steps. That's usually the fastest way to get started with setting up on StoryOrigin. But if you want to create a review copy, you could create a review copy on the review copies tab of your dashboard. And you can optionally choose to publicly list that review copy as well. So when a reader comes to StoryOriginApp.com, they can check out the free ebooks available, and they can see the review copies that are available on StoryOrigin to request as well. And so sometimes you'll get a handful of requests from readers if you choose to optionally post your review copy in that public directory as well.
That is really handy. I'm really glad that you shared that, because I think that is another great feature about StoryOrigin, where readers are going there just to get those books. So
yeah, and I'll also really quickly share a lot of times people want to see what the website looks like that you can build with StoryOrigin. So I'll
great.
show a quick example website as well. All right. So here's my author website that I've built with StoryOrigin. It's all of my stuff I use as an example is usually Sherlock Holmes, because it's all in the public domain. Because again, I have not gotten back to writing the way that I had initially intended. And so I use Arthur Conan Doyle. So here's www.readsherlockholmes.com. So you can see here, this is the freebie. Someone can join my newsletter and get a free copy of A Study in Scarlet. And then readers can click here to see either, get the freebie, the first in series, or they can buy direct. They can buy directly from me the follow-up books in that series. And then here are the books that I'm selling via just retailers. So if you click on one of these books, it'll take you to that universal book link page. And then I have here as well one of those link collections. So if I want to direct traffic to, joining my Facebook group, or join my art team or something like that, I can put that list of buttons here. And then again, promoting that reader magnet, because it is so important to entice them to get on your mailing list. That way you collect those visitors and you can reach out to them anytime and build that direct connection with them. And then lastly, here's just like the quick author bio and where else they can follow me on various platforms.
I love it. That is so handy. So thank you for sharing that. I'm glad that you shared that. Can you share any success stories from authors who have used StoryOrigin?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it it depends on which success stories you're most interested in. StoryOrigin, if you go to StoryOriginApp.com, you can under the first section, we'll see this consolidate and simplify. StoryOrigin does it all. You can read about each of the individual features, whether that's getting more reviews or managing beta copies or building your email list. So for example, if the first thing that you want to do is build your mailing list, I would go to build your author email list here, and you can read from these success stories here. So Amanda grew her list from 0 to 1,000 subscribers in the first year. Len grew to 1,200 subscribers in 18 newsletter issues. Ellen got 400 subscribers in a single month. Bella grew her list from 0 to 4,000 subscribers. MC from 3,000 to 12,000. Stephen from 0 to 1,000 in 5 months. So there's lots of stories there, and you can read them. Most of these come from Facebook. So reviews, let me post here. So you can also just go to StoryOriginApp.com/reviews of StoryOrigin, where I've consolidated all of the reviews, and most of these come from Facebook. And you can also select here at the top of this reviews of StoryOrigin what you're trying to do. And for example, let's say track my word count. That will filter things. Now, this one had it at the top. So David said it's, allowed me to track my progress in a really meaningful way, set reasonable goals and expectations for myself, and better estimate my publishing schedule. Deneen says this tool keeps me on track for my deadlines with goal trackers. Alicia went from 700,000, pushed herself to hit 7,000 words using goal trackers feature. Sherry's written 45 plus books using the goal trackers feature on StoryOrigin, tracker daily word count, and all that stuff. And so again, you can use this filter to look at things like building your mailing list or tracking your word count or whatever else. Lots of case studies there from authors. And then you can read a couple of in-depth case studies. If you go to the tutorials tab on StoryOrigin, there are additional case studies here as well, which are more in-depth case studies of, like, first thing I did was go and I went and set up my mailing list on MailerLite or whatever. And then next I went here and I did this. And so those authors have written some really nice case studies that will provide you with sort of step-by-step how they did things.
Oh, that's great. I love that. And I think that's a great resource for authors to be able to take a look at. We have a question here. How many books per website?
There's no real limit on how many books you can have on your website. StoryOrigin is designed for one author profile per account, though. If you have multiple pen names or something like that, then you would want to set up secondary or tertiary accounts on StoryOrigin for each one of those pen names that you have. But under a single pen name, there's no real limits on how many books that you can have, whether you're talking about your reader magnets or review copies or universal book links, etc. And for those authors that do personally write under multiple pen names, if you go to the pricing, so I briefly mentioned StoryOrigin it's $10 a month or $100 per year. If you write under multiple pen names, you can just send me an email this deal is public. If you go to the StoryOrigin pricing page, this is not special. So if you just send me an email, if you write under multiple pen names, I will provide you with a code that gives you a 50% off the yearly subscription plan for each additional pen name. So if you're paying for the yearly plan on your first account for $100 per month, each additional account would just be $50 per year after that.
Okay, that's great. That's wonderful. What sets StoryOrigin apart from other platforms or apps in the same space? I know we've talked about this being like the one-stop shop, but are there any other things that set you apart from others?
So it's sort of a combo of those things, right? So one is like, it's pretty hard to compare StoryOrigin to anything else, just because like if you look at like, for example, like trying to get reviews and comparing review copy platforms, like there's a couple of competitors to that on StoryOrigin. If you're looking at against StoryOrigin, if you look at setting up universal book links, there's a couple other services that you can do that with. If you look at creating reader magnet landing pages, there are a couple other services that you can do that with. If you're looking at, managing beta copies, there are a couple other services that you can do that with. So it's really that StoryOrigin sort of does it all. But then with each one of those individual features, they work a little bit on StoryOrigin than those other services work. For example, the beta copies feature, I'm not aware of any other service like that feature on StoryOrigin where readers have to actually leave feedback on each chapter to unlock each next chapter. And so that is really that's quite unique to StoryOrigin. And then it's also just that like StoryOrigin you can also use to build your author website. You can use it to actually set up those direct sale pages on your author website that you build with StoryOrigin as well. And you can set up those link collections so you don't have to use another service like Linktree or something to just manage something very small. It's just all in one place.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So where do authors go if they want to get started?
Yeah, so can check out StoryOriginApp.com. And again, if anyone has questions, my inbox is always open. Evan at StoryOriginApp.com is how you can reach out to me too.
That is great. Thank you so much. Is there anything before we end today's webinar? Is there anything else you wanted to add or share?
Oh my goodness. No, I don't think so. We covered a lot of stuff.
We did. So I do have a question here.
Yeah.
How does StoryOrigin compare with PubFunnels?
I am not familiar with PubFunnels, so I could not say. But again, like I would just go to StoryOriginApp.com, and for any one of those features on StoryOrigin, you can generally get a breakdown of how that feature works. So I'll just do a quick presentation. I'll share my screen again real quick. So if you go to StoryOriginApp.com, again, if you're looking at like any one of those individual features, so for example, like gathering and managing beta reader feedback, you can see those testimonials and those case studies from other authors. You can see what those various features are of it. So like feedback being required, you can add questionnaires to your beta copies between chapters. You can slice and dice all the feedback on a single page with StoryOrigin. You can track your reader's progress through the beta copy. And then you can see like screenshots of what it actually looks like when you're viewing things on your StoryOrigin dashboard as well. And you can see video tutorial and frequently asked questions. And then you can do the same thing for all of StoryOrigin's other various features as well. So that is that. If you're trying to compare StoryOrigin to anything else, that is where I would go to. Just go to the specific feature on StoryOrigin and then compare it against whatever other service provides that similar functionality.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Any last questions for Evan before we let him out for the day? Give him his freedom from being, I would say being in front of the computer, but you're just going to close down and get back to work and it's still on the computer.
Yes, I will go eat some lunch first though. But I do love the way that you phrased it as letting me out like I'm like a puppy. Like Evan needs to go have his playtime now. Evan needs to be walked and watered and fed.
That's
and then...
awesome. All right. Well, Evan, thank you so much for being here. Once again, let us know how they can find out more about StoryOrigin and get in touch with you.
Yeah. So again, just StoryOriginApp.com or email me anytime, evan@StoryOriginApp.com. There's also a Facebook group called StoryOrigin Authors. You can join there. But honestly, if you have questions, the best thing to do is usually just email me. That will get you the fastest response.
All right. That sounds great. Thank you again for being here. Thank you to everyone who was here today. And we hope to talk to you all again soon.
Thanks again for having me on.
All right. Bye.